Welcome to Lift Your Leg. This is Monique Anstee from the Naughty Dogge in Victoria, BC, author of As a Dog Thinketh.
And Jill Brown from Calgary, Alberta, the Bag Lady.
Tonight we are discussing preparing dogs for an emergency. For me, in Victoria, BC, we have forest fires and there's always the threat of earthquake that's going to make us all swim for freedom. Jill, what are your risks where you are?
The occasional tornado, not a lot. Floods are probably the biggest thing here.
No fires?
Outside of the city, but not within the city. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
I shouldn't say that. Fires are always a big deal, but we don't see a lot of it within the city limits.
So what do we need to do with our dogs to prepare them for things like this?
My thoughts on this might differ from a lot of people. I think there's a lot of things that we can do to try to help in those emergency or catastrophic situations. But I really don't think that there's any guarantees. You can do everything you can think of to do, and how your dog is going to react, I think, depends mainly on temperament.
I do agree with you. I work a lot with fearful dogs, and I can use Pippa here as an example. It was a much younger Pippa, and she boarded with my dear friend. Well, I was away somewhere, I can't remember. And I'd worked a lot with Pippa, gotten her nice and brave and confident, and she was in a good place. Took her to my friends for boarding. She knew my friend. She'd been there before. This wasn't an unheard of thing to happen. But without me being there, Pippa could not cope. She just fell apart. So while she'd never had issues with kids, noises, other dogs, she couldn't cope in that house, in that same situation. And a lot of the board and trained dogs I get, like I just had a cute little street dog here. Actually, I still have her. And when she came, she was quite stable with her owner. I was really impressed at the work her lady had done with her. And then her person left and the dog fell apart. It's like, oh no. However, though, as soon as I formed a relationship with her, I got back to where her owner had gotten her, where the two of them were. And then I was able to move forward. And I think I was probably there within 24, 36 hours. So it didn't take me long. But with these fearful dogs, you have to form that relationship, because as they progress in life, all the boldness that they're getting, they've really just gotten from us. So remove us from the picture and the boldness goes with it.
Absolutely. My sizzle dog is like that. And as a young dog, if anything startled her, she would bolt. I never had her in a situation where I could see just how far she would go. But as her confidence increased and we worked more with her, I could see the length of her bolt. Like, she would still get startled and she'd bolt, but it would be like 6 or 8 feet, and then she'd turn around and come back to me.
Yeah.
Versus I'm going to go to the end of my flexi and then I can't go any further. She did learn that safety was with me. But like you said, once I'm not there, if something happened, I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope that the training we've done will make her better than she was.
And while it might with Sizzle, because she's older with many years under her belt of good experiences, and she's seen so much, she's been so well socialized now. If you have a young dog who doesn't have all those experiences under their belt just because time hasn't happened yet, what do we need to do to make those dogs safer in these moments? My first thought is we need some way that they can easily be caught. So do we need to have like thick collars on them with either tabs or lines attached, but lines that won't snag on things?
Yeah.
And when I say a line, I'm not talking like 15 feet. I'm thinking more something like 8 feet.
Yeah.
But something that won't snag. That's very important. Otherwise, these dogs are just going to get wrapped around a tree and stuck. And
which
then,
I guess if they're bolting, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. And if it was my sheep in a moment like this, I would be marking their coats with like purple chalk. Like they would be leaving a different color so I could find mine again. And I honestly think if I had a dog like this, I would do something similar. I would turn them green. It's easy to find my dog when they're green. Or I would mark them in some way that is easy to find them. Like my name would be big and obvious with my phone number on that leash so people can even see it rather than having to touch the dog. I don't know. I'm just thinking of ideas out loud, but I certainly would mark them in some way that it was obvious.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends on the East Coast, and when they know that there's a hurricane pending or a tornado on its way, all of the dogs are collared and they're all wearing leashes. So that if something happens, like a window blows out or something, like they're in the house trying to be safe, but if something like that happens, the dogs are already leashed, so it's easy to grab a hold of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of terrifying thinking about it. Obviously, in things like this, all of our dogs need to be crate trained, because if a forest fire rushes through here, I'm going to be sleeping in gymnasium with all of my dogs. So they need to be able to be in a crate and shut up and behave in a crate.
Yep.
So that's a skill that all of our dogs need to learn, because we just don't know where life is going to take us.
Yeah. And to be comfortable in a situation where there are going to be a lot of dogs around you, which you should be able to achieve just going to classes.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, where that's not a terribly unfamiliar thing for them to be surrounded by other dogs.
This one isn't just for emergencies, but this is so important for traveling with dogs. You need to make sure that your dog can pee and poo on concrete, gravel, asphalt, and on a leash, and even with a stranger on a leash. It's an important life skill.
Absolutely. I have had dogs in the past that wouldn't potty on leash.
Yep.
And I've been yelled at by people for having my dog off leash, but sorry, she just has to pee.
When I got Reggie, he was so difficult to potty, and I would just go out with him and just kind of entertain myself on my phone, so I wasn't being super obsessive about what he was doing. I was just pretending to him I was distracted, and it would be like 45 minutes before he would pee. And I was so diligent about making him do that before I would let him go tracking. And eventually it was easy to get him to pee, but I spent many hours out there waiting for him, because I can't compete with this dog and I can't travel with this dog if I can't get him to pee. So very important.
Yep. Another thing that just popped into my mind, which doesn't really have much to do with the dogs themselves, but always make sure that you've got a supply of mainly water in the event of an emergency or catastrophe. I was going to say fill up a tub, but if your house is falling down, that's not going to help you. But I like to always make sure that I've got water stashed somewhere.
In my minivan, I pulled out my seats, and in the hole where the seats once were, I have jugs of water.
Good plan. Yep.
I wonder if they're green now. I haven't looked at them in many years. How long does water last? I probably should check that.
I guess it depends on how clean your jugs are.
Well, it's brand new and unopened, so.
I was coming home from your place a couple of years back, and there was a big accident on the highway. A little car had passed another vehicle and head-on it. And it was an area where I was unable to turn around and go back to the last town I was in. And I had 3 dogs in my car, and I only had about a third of a jug of water, and it was hot. And that was my big eye-opener, because I thought, if I'm stuck here for, like, I was there anyway for probably 2.5 hours, 3 hours. But if it had been much longer than that, hopefully they would have brought in some kind of supplies. But I make a point now of, when I'm traveling, I make sure that there's enough water in case something like that happens again.
Yeah, that's wise.
Dogs listening to other people.
I think through our lifestyles, like, it's something I teach in class. There's certain set strategic things I teach in class. So if ever a dog gets out and some good Samaritan finds them, they're going to take a dog by a collar and take them somewhere by their collar. In every group class, never say every, because there's always exceptions to that rule, but generally in each pet manners class, out of 7 dogs, there's normally 1 dog that will bite you if you take its collar.
Yep.
We see that, we work on it, we train it, and then we hope it will hold in the case of an emergency, if ever it happens.
Yeah.
So one thing each dog should learn is to be led by their collar by a stranger. And it's easy to do. It's easy to teach with cookies. It's just something they need to see. So that's one thing that's very important. I also teach restraints to all dogs so that they know how to be held, restrained for the vet. That's another very important one. But my dog's actually listening to a stranger. I don't want them doing that. Part of I like to have dogs to make me feel safer. That's why I have the breeds that I have. I actually feel quite unsafe in my house without them. When they're here, it's a totally different story. I'm kind of invincible. I'll go anywhere with my dogs, but I don't feel the same without them. So I like that little bit of a feeling of safety that they provide for me. And I don't have that same feeling of safety if they will listen to any stranger.
Yeah.
Because anyone can sweet talk them and like, hi, Mr. German Shepherd, would you like a steak, as they walk into my house and break in? Like, that's not very useful to me.
Or walk in and tell Harry to lie down.
Exactly.
Like if you've got your dogs there that are there to protect you,
Yeah.
I don't. I
Well, I'm
had
not
a
even saying they're not here to protect me, but they do
no.
offer me that feeling of safety.
Well, and I believe they would protect you if need be.
Even Rupert would. I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
But if they listen to everything that's being told to them, like my first almost bite as a letter carrier was a pit bull that the people had left the gate open, and he came running out of the backyard, and I was like, oh, this could end poorly. And he was kind of circling around me, so I just kept circling, so I was facing him, and I tried telling him to sit, and he looked at me like, you ain't the boss of me. And that's kind of what I would expect my dogs to do with some random stranger. Like, why should they listen to a random stranger?
Yeah. I, I do think it depends on dog temperament too. I think Pippa probably would listen to a stranger.
If she
She's
would
just
let them
that
get close enough.
she's that sweet cooperative dog and obedient and tries to please. And I just think she would listen. Johnny, he'd laugh in their face, isn't it? But as I say that though, I I fully believe that all of my dogs would cooperate with a stranger, but they won't listen to a stranger. So you could open up the car door, say, jump on in, dogs, and they'd go. But if you ask them to sit or lay down, yeah, I don't think they're going to do that for you.
Yeah.
And
My biggest,
I kind of like that. I have no need to change that.
well, I also
But
don't, I
but
don't
they're
want them
safe for
random.
the vet. I can take them places. They're safe for the vet. They can get examined. They
Yeah.
can be handled. I can have a house sitter.
And around here, stealing dogs is a huge thing in the last couple of years. So, do I want my dogs to go up to somebody who says, here, come on, get in my car?
My
Unless they've got their hands on their collar and are helping them in, but
my
yeah,
brother had a dog stolen years ago, so it's real. It
yeah,
happens.
yeah,
So
it's
there's that fine line of we don't want our kids talking to strangers, but yet they also need to know when to go to a stranger for help. That's what we kind of need to teach to our dogs here.
yeah. Which,
So
in my mind, at the end of the day, you hope and pray that in that situation your dog is going to listen. I have one that I'm pretty sure would go up to somebody saying, "Can you help me?" And another one that would say, "You're the boogeyman, and I can't get close enough to you."
Prada would just walk into their house and climb on their bed and say, Mother's busy right now. Take me.
Roll over and kick them in the head. Exactly. Sizzle would
Uh,
stay at arm's length, and she'd be like, I don't know, if you have food, I might think about it, but I'm still not getting close enough to you.
It's actually a real problem for things like what if we had to phone 911 coming in our house
Mm-hmm.
with a whole bunch of people in a black uniform with purpose and intention walking in your house? Would your dogs allow that? So I think that's reason of once you have medical conditions, buy dogs that will. That's not the time to go get a burble.
Yeah, exactly. When I first bought my house, the home builder thought that it was okay to just let people into my house with a key to do repairs while I wasn't home.
Oh.
And I told her initially, I said, let me know when that's happening. I'll make sure the dogs are put away. They came in to do some repairs one day, and one of the guys said, where's the dogs? And I kind of looked at him. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the last time we were in here, you had 3 dogs. It's like, the last time. Yeah, the red one wasn't really sure about us, and one just brought us a toy. Like, all right. So I had a word with the home builder, and they had to replace all of my locks, and got a chatting that nobody was allowed in here without my okay.
Good for you. That's awful.
Well, I know.
So are we feeling this way because we're women?
Oh my God, are we going to go to the bear or the man in the woods?
What?
Oh, that's the biggest thing on Facebook right now. Would you rather be in the woods with a man or a bear?
I'm always in the woods with a bear, so.
A man you didn't know or a bear?
I'm always in the woods with a bear, so I'll pick the bear.
I don't know what the percentage is, but it's an outrageous percentage that would take a bear over a man.
Well, I'm with the bear, so.
Mm-hmm.
We had a cougar this week with us on a walk.
That's a little unnerving. I don't know that it has to do with being a woman or not. I just think that I expect my dogs to listen to me and my close circle of friends. Having said that, I know there are many times when you try to get my dogs to go out to potty or come in from pottying, and they're like, don't have to listen to you.
And that's just it. They will cooperate with me and go out and pee. And then I'm like, come on in or come this way, whatever. And they just go wherever the hell they want to go. They just look at me like, yeah, whatever, lady.
Yeah.
So they will cooperate and on the important thing, but then they also won't on the flip. Like if I'm trying to shuffle them away, like I've had a moment like I'm making Jill her coffee in the morning and I'll try and load up her dogs in my car and Prada will go willingly and Sizzle like is, you cannot kidnap me. I know this is a trick. I'm not going with you. And I mean, I'm living with her every summer. It's rather silly, but I get it. And that's okay.
But I also know that if something happened to me and you had to look after them, it would take about 8 hours before Sizzle was like, you're my owner and I will listen to you.
That's just it with my board and trains. With my board and trains, for most of them, I need one walk and then they're just mine. With my really sketchy, untrusting street dogs, it's normally 24 to 36 hours and then they're mine. And I think most of their people are so surprised when they come back that first week and their dogs adore me. It's like, he's never been to anyone before. So most dogs will switch ownership quite fast. German Shepherds switch it the fastest, I think.
Seriously?
Yeah. And I think it's in the breed too, because they're bred to be handed off to a police officer. So they're used to being switched around. So as much as Johnny loves me, he'll just go happily with his new person if there was one.
Yay.
Nice try.
That surprises me because they seem to be more of a one-person dog.
Well, they are, but then that one person will switch. Like when I get them here for board and train, they're mine right away.
Huh.
And they literally, truly are mine. Like the people come back and they're like, eh. Then they go with their people and then they don't want to leave them back on Monday to come back to me. I think with any of this stuff, and this is the hard part about dog training, there are no absolutes. You can never say never. So almost everything we say on here, there are exceptions. So all that we say are really just guidelines. They're not hard and fast rules because there's always an exception. Never say never when it comes to training dogs because they're dynamic beings.
Absolutely. And there is no way to train for a catastrophe. You can't train for a tornado or a hurricane. Like, there's no way that you can train that same emotion in you and in the dog, that fear, that terror that comes with it.
Oh, we can talk about fear and terror. Harry, with me snorkeling.
Oh my God, yes. For Harry.
Harry has to be the most stable dog I know, or one of them. He is so stable, like nothing phases him. Would you agree with that, Jill? Like for Malinois, it's shocking.
100%.
He's more like a German Shepherd than he's a Malinois.
I mean, as much as I call him bad names, Harry's wonderful.
He's just so stable. He's always got a smile on his face. He's like, duh, duh, duh. Nothing really phases him, like nothing. So that's Mr. Harry until I went snorkeling. I rocked his world, poor dog. So he's Mr. Cool Guy. He swims, he goes out with me, like he paddle boards, he does all of this stuff. But then when I went snorkeling with my flippers on and went underwater, he freaked out. And he came over and like put his legs on my shoulders and he wouldn't get off of me. And he just wanted me back on land. And he was an absolute menace until I was back on land.
I have pictures of that. We'll have to put that as the picture for this post.
Yeah, maybe me in a wetsuit isn't going on,
No,
but thanks for the offer.
Just your head is sticking out of the creek. I have better ones than that.
And they're also not going on the internet. Oh dear. You made me lose my train of thought with the panic there that just happened.
That I was going to post your picture. I know you have others to get back at me at. I don't have to worry.
Oh dear. With Harry there, I wasn't able to work him through that stupid panic. I think I ended up just putting him back in the car. Did I? What did I do, Jill?
You sat with him in the creek for a while, like let him sit there with his feet on your shoulders. And then you just came out of the creek. But no, he didn't go back to the car that time.
No, I actually did swim with him. I kept swimming and kind of got him used to it, but his panic never left.
He was still worried as long as you were in the creek. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay, you just said that perfectly. His panic changed to worry, but the worry never left.
Yeah. Yeah. Once he knew you weren't going to die, he didn't have to panic anymore, but he was still
He wasn't comfortable with me in there.
Well, all he could see was the top part of your body. He's like, suddenly I don't have an owner.
But he's been swimming with me. Swimming was okay. It was just snorkeling.
I wonder if it was just the mask.
Well, I'm scared of that mask too, so maybe.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, crazy. One thing we should all have is a form of go bags. So in my old van, and I need to set up my new van for this, in my glove box, I have like little slip leashes that vet clinics have. I had a whole bunch of them in there just in case I get caught short somewhere and need a spare leash. Mm-hmm. So that's always something smart to have in your glove box. And the little cheap ones from the dollar store, they take up no room whatsoever.
Yep.
You need to have any medications, just a grab bag that you can go. If you know there is something coming and you are concerned about it and you have that warning in advance, like we had a forest fire here once. And I had more dogs than I had room for in my van at that moment. I think I had been training several dogs that day, but the roads were closed, so people wouldn't be able to get to me. So I had those dogs plus my own. And I'm just thinking, if I get evacuated, if I have to run, how am I going to get all these animals out of here? Not to mention the chickens and everything else, but they, of course, will be abandoned over someone's dog. What I ended up doing was I had my van packed full with all of my dogs, of course, my husband's precious camera. And then I had phoned someone who lived in the area. And if I was evacuated, they were going to get dropped off here and drive my second van, which was filled with all the other dogs. So I came up with a plan, but make sure you have an escape route so you can get out with all of the animals that you have.
Absolutely.
I mean, unless you're a daycare, I don't think that's an issue for other people, but for me in that moment it was.
We did have a forest fire come through the outskirts of Calgary, and one of my friends owned a boarding kennel. And we were all down in the States at a dog show when it came through, and it was a panic, but we managed. We messaged everybody we knew to head out to the kennel to take as many dogs as they could if need be.
And
you have to have a network.
That's a good thing about the dog communities. When push comes to shove, we're there for each other.
Yeah.
And we will all be there to help because ultimately we love dogs and we will be there to help dogs.
Another thing, when you were talking about your go bag.
Yep.
I have a little piece of PVC that I have my dog information rolled up and put inside that I keep in my glove box. So it's got an emergency contact number, somebody that will come and get your dogs regardless of what happens to you. There's a contact person that will fly if need be to come get your dogs in the event of an emergency.
Let me guess, is it me?
No, because you said I should find someone else. Medications that they're on, their temperament. Mine also says to please place them at a veterinary clinic versus a pound or an SPCA.
Oh, yeah. Well
They're
said.
current on vaccinations. Nothing needs to be done there. A signature that says I will pay for any treatments that need to be done. So they've got your signature on that. I have it in the PVC pipe in my glove box. Normally I have it zip tied to my kennels, but I have a friend who's a search and rescue person, and she said you are better off either putting it in like a plastic sleeve and taping it to the top of your kennel or actually writing it in Jiffy marker, because she said search and rescue is there to save people and animals. They're not going to go searching for information.
But why wouldn't they see the tube on the front of a crate rather than it taped on top of a crate?
I think because they still have to go into the tube to get the information out.
Okay.
If they see it on top of the kennel, the number is there, they can just say, call this number.
Got it. So it has to be immediately visible. They won't go looking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And something else she told me, which was interesting to me, the impact crates, which I believe are the metal crates. She said they are almost impossible to get into.
Oh.
So
why?
The crash tested crates are great, like the Roughlands. And
yeah.
I can't think of the other names. The Gunners, I think.
Yeah.
But the metal ones in an accident are really hard to get into.
So Harry's staying in. He won't be able to escape.
Potentially.
That works. That's not a bad thing.
That's mean.
Well, Harry being trapped in there is better than Harry being loose.
True. That's true, yes. Unless your car's on fire, you don't want that to happen.
Oh, don't say that.
No. But yeah, like locking your crates when you're driving, not the best idea.
Yeah.
No. Locking them if you have like if your hatch is open, you lock them so no one can steal them. Absolutely. But when you're driving, make sure there's access to them for the search and rescue people.
Interesting. What else do you train your dogs to help them? I think with a lot of our lifestyle where our dogs are just a part of our lives, as time happens and just experiences happen, they're going to get more and more solid for stuff like this. So I think a young dog is going to respond very differently in an emergency, whether his temperament is good or bad, than an old dog who's seen so much and is going to just take it in stride.
Yes, I do agree the old dogs will take it better, but I still think that temperament trumps it.
Of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think the best we can do is just socialize them, expose them to everything.
And by socialize, we do not mean being groped and touched by the world. We mean seeing the world, experiencing the world without it touching them, petting them. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I pet your dog? Can I pet your child?
We had said something earlier about we didn't want our dogs obeying people. You and I actively teach our dogs to ignore strangers on walks. So we're doing the exact opposite of that. If we're walking our dogs off leash, I'm teaching them to just ignore other people and go straight past. So if I taught them to listen to people, for every stranger is like, hi, can I give your dog a cookie? They get mobbed by my guys.
Yeah.
And I've very carefully taught them to ignore that. So, yeah, I really don't want mine listening to people.
You can't have both.
No, you can't have both. You need to pick one or the other. So that depends on your lifestyle, your age, your health.
Yeah. And as I get older and think that I might have issues, if I had dogs like you have your Shepherd and your Malinois, I would just make sure that I had friends that I was 100% sure those dogs would allow into the house in the event of an emergency.
I think the issue is if I was to have a heart attack here, and I was aware enough to phone 911 as it was happening. Would I be able to get Harry and Johnny into a crate so that people could come into the house, or lock them in a room? You know what, realistically, if I'm having a heart attack, I'll phone 911 and I'll just wait on the deck.
Exactly. I'll be on the swing on the deck.
Just peel my body off the deck, please.
Come quick before I get sunburned.
Or rained on. But I think that's the issue. I think for me, 911 is the bigger issue than anything else. If I had to have people come and rescue me for some reason.
I think of that often. I mean, because my brain is a little bit crazy, but yeah, I mean, my bedroom is right at my front door, so it would be easy for me to close my dogs in my bedroom.
Yeah.
And be waiting for someone to come. I had my girls out for a walk today, and I have found a nice spot again, and a woman came in the opposite end. This goes back to us talking about our dogs leaving other people alone. I saw her from a distance, and I could tell she had dogs. So we were kind of on opposite sides of the field. My dogs are running. They're perfectly fine and happy that she's on the other side. She lets her dog off leash, and it just beelines it to me. And I'm like, I don't care that your dogs are off leash. I'm not the person that's going to yell and scream because this isn't an off leash area. But if you're going to have your dog off leash, have some
Keep it to
control over it.
yourself.
She called this dog probably 17 times as I'm sitting there holding on to my girls, making sure this dog doesn't. And it wasn't being nasty. It was just circling them, play bowing and stuff. But I'm like,
what breed, for reference sake?
it would have been probably I'm going to say the coloring was interesting. I'm going to say a Mastiff Rottie cross, maybe.
Okay.
But very, body language was very playful, spinning, doing zoomies. So it was a young dog.
Okay.
But I was still like, just come and get your dog.
I tend to walk in the other direction and take their dog with me if their dog's being that annoying and they're that far away. Depends. It depends how hard they're trying to get their dog.
Well, and she wasn't. She didn't head over to me, probably because she had a puppy with her as well. She probably didn't want to come that close. But anyway, that was my
bitch of today.
That was my bitch of today. Yes, and like I said, it wasn't a nasty dog, so it wasn't a horrible thing. But she waved, and I'm like, "Hi, come get your dog."
Hi, he's really nice. I'm stealing him now.
Yeah, that's what I should have done. I should have just kept walking and called him along with me.
Yeah. I think the moral of this story is make sure your dog is a well-rounded individual, that you've given them the social skills, that you're prepared for any scenario that life can throw at you when you least expect it.
Or as prepared as can be.
Yeah, make sure your young dog has done an overnight without you. Make sure you have stayed a night in a hotel. Make sure you've traveled in vehicles that aren't your own. Crate them in a place that isn't their normal place. So Reggie was so particular about things. One day I moved his crate. We were going to Germany. So I moved his crate probably 10 feet forward in the same room. He couldn't get in it. Just like, no, this is not my crate. Move it back. So that was kind of when I realized that, and started crating him in different areas around, like just moving his crate, because he couldn't handle the change of it. So I'm also very aware with my young dogs, they travel in somebody else's car. They travel in different scenarios. Once, Cass and I, was it Cass? Of course it was, because she's the bad one. We got lost hiking. It was Cass, Lisa, and I. And we had so many dogs between us. And we got very lost, and we got a ride out. And so they're like, just put all the dogs in the back of the truck. I'm like, no, because that wasn't going to work very well. So instead, I think I had Neville German Shepherd, Reggie German Shepherd, Sebastian Shepherd, Basil Tavern. Oh, and she had Willie Staffy, And I think she may have had another dog. We had so many dogs, Hilda Irish Terrier and a whole bunch of others. So there was a lot of strong, scrappy characters that we were putting together. Charlie Malinois. And every single dog and all three of us was in the back of their truck, like just on the back seat. So it was 3 people and like 9 dogs. And we did it. It was a super good experience. So you need moments like that. That's what kind of gets them used to stuff like this. Now, fortunately, you hope that truck ride is going to be a short one, and it was. But them all having to behave like that was such a good experience.
It's the crazy stuff that makes the biggest difference.
It is. It's those adrenalized moments of like, oh no. And then you have to like problem solve. And I actually had this conversation with another competitor in my sport. And she said, what defines world competitions from local competitions is that at a world competition, everything gets changed and ruined right before you have to then just go out and compete. So right before, it's been like a complete disaster. You can't get a ride to where you're going. You can't find where you're going. You arrive late or not at all, and someone yells at you. And then you have to smile and go give the best performance of your life. That's what it's like competing on a world scale. But it's that kind of thing that also is what we need to do here to prepare us for emergencies, because it's when everything goes terribly wrong and then you have to have your A game.
Yep. That's when you need to pull it all together.
That's what it is. So once again,
was it Cass that told you to jump?
Yes, of course it was. Of course. How long did it take you to work that out?
Oh, immediately. I just haven't had a chance to ask you yet.
Yes, it was.
I'm surprised she didn't make sure you weren't close to the thorn bushes.
Oh, there was no thought or anything. It was just like dive.
Oh, Cass.
Insane friends. Anything else? What else are we missing here? It is as you travel. Reggie got to travel the world with me. He went to so many countries in Europe. And it's as you're traveling the world and just getting exposed to so much different stuff, that's what makes them invincible and prepared for anything that life throws at them, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of said older dogs, because you just can't have the same experiences with a young dog.
Well, it's kind of funny that you gave that whole list of things that your young dogs should do, because mine haven't. I remember the first boot camp I went to with Sizzle, that you wanted to keep her upstairs and sleep with you.
Yeah.
And I almost cried. It was like, but no.
Did you let me?
No.
You big chicken.
Yeah. And then a couple of years ago, I tried to get you to take her, but you didn't realize she had just rolled in a bunch of goose shit.
So it was at boot camp at the beginning when I was getting to know Jill and Sizzle. Sizzle couldn't stand on her own 4 feet without Jill at all. Like, she needed Jill, which is good. I mean, that's a good thing. She needed Jill. But in order to make her stronger, she needs to eventually learn to stand on her own 4 feet. So Jill was sleeping in my basement, and I tried to persuade her to let me take Sizzle up to our bedroom that night. And Jill wouldn't let me.
No.
That was too much of a stretch for her. But so be it. We all get there eventually. There's many ways to get to Rome. You don't have to do the one way that's suggested if it feels terribly wrong.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Thinking of that. So have your dogs not stayed in a hotel?
I think Sizzle has. I don't know that Prada has, because I haven't done any trialing with her, really.
And I can say they have been in a different car, and Prada is terrible.
Oh, if she's not in a kennel, she's horrible.
She's horrid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Harry is much better, I would like to point out.
He is. I will agree. Prada is perfectly fine in a different vehicle if she's in a crate.
Okay. what other weird things have we done with our dogs? Because I think when we go north, they get so many experiences they just don't get elsewhere. Paddleboarding, kayaking, going on those different surfaces, the unevenness of the water. I think that's super good for them.
Yeah.
Walking on a marina, especially one in wind, so it's moving around.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good for them. It's just getting them on uneven surfaces. What other stuff have we done up there that's been so good for our dogs? Oh, my favorite that I'm about to do, and this is my favorite with my street dogs that I get, is I take them up north here to a town that's not that populated. And if I go early enough in the morning, I mean, I'm not talking crack of dawn, I mean like 8 o'clock, I can walk them through the entire town before it all completely wakes up off leash. So I'm going around town. They're going to see people. They're going to see dogs off leash, but there's just not enough life that I need to worry about needing to micromanage them and could like totally control them on a leash. So I can work on their recall. I can work on people kind of coming out of nowhere, dogs coming out of nowhere, but it's also laid back, subdued, that I can very safely do this up there. I just like jinx myself now by saying that on air.
No, just touch wood.
Okay, all right. Done.
But truly, even the main road that goes through town, there's not a lot
Unpopulated.
of people. Yeah. And when they are on it, they're driving slowly. So yeah, it's a very safe town to be able to socialize dogs in, for sure.
And I actually think for Jill, like with Sizzle, making Sizzle brave, I think it was going up there that probably made the biggest difference for Sizzle. It was once that Jill learned to unclip her leash and let Sizzle navigate her way through town off leash. I think that made a huge difference, both in your confidence of trusting her and of her when she saw the change in you. I actually I think that made like a profound difference to your relationship with Sizzle. And then I think we did all of that with baby Prada too.
As a baby, yes. So it just became, it was just second nature with Prada.
So for Prada, it's just been her way of life. Like, I just follow mother wherever we're going.
Yeah.
And it's just an amazing opportunity up there, like to be able to train dogs. It's just amazing. So I get to do that with my street dog next week. I can't wait.
I get to do it all summer.
My little street dog and a very naughty Jack Russell that will want to bite the tires of every car that goes by.
You'll love it up there.
But it's places like that where you can give them the freedom in a safe way. It's so beneficial. But again, I am fortunate where I live that I'm able to do that. I'm not living in New York or some massive city.
Yeah.
So,
do you remember when Prada was a baby and we went to Perry Bay, I think it was?
Yeah.
And you wanted me to run along the pier and go down the, whatever they're called, the little arms where the, and I was like, no, I can't. What if she falls in the water?
She's a golden, she'll swim.
And now I'm like, big deal. She falls in the water. She's a golden, she'll swim. Yeah.
Well, and if she falls in the water, I pluck her out.
Exactly.
And then next time she learns not to fall in the water. Like, it's not some narrow gangway. It's like a 8-foot wide walkway. If you fall in the water, you best work on your balance.
Yeah.
Not go so close to the edge.
But if you're a worrier, those are hard things to get past. And I have always been a worrier with my dogs.
I think I am a worrier too. What's the difference? Because I see all the possibilities of things that can go wrong, like I do. But in my head, though, I think I'm always looking for worst case scenario. So if they fall in the water and a seal is swimming close, like, yeah, that's terrible because the seal might kill them.
Right.
But if they fall in the water and there's nothing close by, too bad.
Yeah.
Pull yourself out, dog. So there are, like, I do think worst case scenarios.
I mean, it also depends on the dogs. Like when I walked with you the first time near your off-leash park where there's a cliff face.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not letting Sizzle off leash here. And your dogs are all common sense enough, even your board and trains, to not go hell-bent for election. But Sizzle would have been just going and been gone. So It depends on the dog that you've got.
I actually don't think that depends on the dog. I think that depends where your dog grew up. Your
Yes.
dogs are on the prairies, which are flat for the
Yes.
most part.
Yeah.
So they're not used to cliffs. They
No.
see big open stretches and they run.
They're looking for gopher holes.
Our dogs know that there can be drop-offs at any minute, so don't believe what you're seeing. So our dogs, with the exception of Harry, run more carefully.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the reasons I love to take dogs to estuaries. So estuaries are where the river meets the ocean, and they're these big grassy meadows that in high tide are waterways. So the water comes in, the water goes out. But the water comes in a whole bunch of like little networks of
They're like fingers.
Ditches, like interconnecting ditches. If you were up ahead, it would probably look like a tree branches.
Yeah.
With the trunk going out to the ocean, and then a whole bunch of like fingers that slowly get smaller and smaller and smaller. But you're walking along grass, and if you're not paying attention and looking at the grass, you fall in this awful hole again and again and again. So you start learning to look at texture of grass and the shade of the grass, and then you can see when these holes are coming. But it's something you have to learn. So when I'm taking dogs there, they go there the first time, they kind of fall in a hole or two, so hopefully they're on leash when they do it. And then they start learning really fast to be careful about where they're running and how to use their legs. But it's a great way for dogs to teach them how to adjust mid-air, mid-gallop, to right their feet if they've realized they're about to land in a hole.
I hate it.
But again, though, yours have only done this at a later age, I think, and they just haven't clued in, maybe?
Well, and mine too, when they see what appears to them to be prairie or flat ground, they just go 100 miles an hour.
But so's Harry going.
But Harry. Harry's going too fast to fall in anything. It's like if Harry was here and it was snowing, nothing would touch him because he's too fast to get hit by a snowflake.
He thanks you for that compliment.
Yeah, take it for what it's worth, Harry.
Oh, dear. I do think all the board and trains I've had out there get used to it really fast. But now for the last year or two, I haven't gotten to go there anymore, which is so sad because of Rupert's eye, he can't see. And it just feels really wrong to take a blind dog to the estuary.
Yeah, I'd say.
Oh, but it was his favorite place.
He can learn some other favorite places.
Here's a story just to differentiate between my two border collies. You have Kate and you have Pippa. Pippa has a nice sweet name. Kate has a harder, more harsh name.
One's an angel, one's a devil.
One's an angel. So one day we were there at the estuary, and there was a little pond that had a couple of fish in it that were panicking because there was barely any water left. So they were kind of flopping around in their little puddle. And Pippa sat there and she watched them, and she was trying to tell me, like, help, there's fish here. I shouldn't say she's trying to tell me because now I sound like I'm crazy, like my dog talks to me. But she was looking at me in that way, and she was sitting and watching her fish. And you could tell from her body language, like she liked her fish. She was watching them. She was staying with them.
Kate ate them, didn't she?
Kate walked along to see what Pippa was looking at. And Kate saw the fish flapping around and ate it. And Pippa looked so sad.
Kate is evil.
That's the difference in the two border collies right there. That's the difference in Kate and Pippa. Pippa wanted to help the fish, and Kate ate it before Pippa could.
Oh, Kate.
And that's the other thing about emergencies. Kate will be fat and plump if there's an emergency. Pippa might starve.
Yeah, because Kate will eat everything.
Kate will eat everything. I don't have to worry about Kate. She'll be able to catch food. She'll eat it. She'll be plump.
Or she'll eat people that try to help her.
She what?
She'll eat the people that try to help her.
No, never. Never. She'll just look at them like, get away from me, you loser. So Kate will be plump. Pippa might go hungry. Rupert would be plump but cold and sad. Harry would be obese.
Yeah, Harry would crawl inside of the deer he just killed to eat his way from the inside out.
Johnny would go hungry. Pippa would go hungry. Mo would eat every crumb and morsel remaining from Harry and the rest of them. She'd be fat too. And what about your dogs? Prada would be useless. She'll go skinny.
Hey now.
Sizzle.
Prada
probably.
would pick up every piece of food and then stand there and try to decide if it was going to poison her.
And Sizzle will choke on it. So, yeah, both of yours aren't going to fare too well in an emergency.
Exactly. If it was a big piece, Sizzle would choke on it.
But
somebody to cut it up.
Every little street dog that we have here right now and every little bad terrier that we have here right now, if there's a forest fire or an earthquake, those dogs will be plump and happy and a little bit feral when we find them again.
Yep.
And our darling sweet dogs won't fare so well. They'll probably be eaten by the feral ones.
And that's something that we didn't touch on, is the fact that a good majority, I don't know the numbers, but a good majority of the dogs that are in some kind of a catastrophe or a car accident or whatever, get spooked and go missing, they become feral within 24 hours.
Shelties are very good at doing that. Shetland sheepdogs.
Yes.
And probably a lot of the herding breeds, I would imagine. And I've had dogs that have gotten away from me. One was a Chihuahua years ago. But they get away. And then once they get away and realize they're away, they panic. And they just instantly change and go wild.
Yep.
It's terrifying.
And they won't trust anyone. They won't come to anyone.
Yep.
Even the owners.
Yep.
The owners can be out there calling them and they're like, no. So we can do all of this stuff to try to prepare them for an emergency. And in the end, you just have to hope and pray that something will go right.
Yeah. And that's taking us back to if you have that dog, if you have a Shetland sheepdog, or if you have a dog that's a little bit timid and likes to run, the Leppy type of dogs.
Yeah.
You make sure that dog's marked.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, find some form of safe spray paint and spray paint your phone number on the side of them.
Yep.
If we had threat of an earthquake here or something like that, I'd be doing that. I would not worry about the risk of spray paint on my dog at that moment in time. They would be so well marked.
That's what the horse people do. They just, yeah.
Do they really?
Paint their phone number on them, yeah.
Like with paint?
I think so. I think it's just paint.
Cool. There you go. Pippa's going to have her phone number on her. It's worth it. Like, I would rather someone can easily mark her and get her back to me. That's the most important thing.
Oh, exactly.
And obviously, I'm going to do everything I can so that won't happen, but that's why we call them emergencies.
Exactly. And catastrophes. Shit happens. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. Like, you're in a car accident and you can have your dog crated.
Yeah.
But if that door pops out of the crate and the dog is gone, yeah.
This happened to a friend of mine who is one of the best dog trainers in the world. He got in a car accident. His dog got out during the accident, and dog took off down the highway, running into oncoming traffic. Oh, and this dog is literally one of the best trained dogs in the world, of amazing temperament, and panicked and fled, and can run fast, and was galloping on the other side of the highway into incoming traffic. Like, how terrifying. And so out of the accident, he just jumped into some stranger's car and said, go, like, get that dog. So they drove beside him. And as he was talking to his dog, the dog eventually heard him and settled down and jumped into the car. But that right there is one of the best trained dogs that I have ever met. So that's
a perfect example of just going feral. They just panic and go.
And a stable dog. So it's not like this dog has poor temperament. This dog is solid and stable, and absolutely panicked when the car flipped and he got out of his crate.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's understandable. Like, why wouldn't they panic? Like, that's terrifying.
And they don't understand what's happening. It's not like he's reason with them.
No, it hurt. It scared him, and he ran for freedom. Like, that's kind of a survival thing. So it doesn't matter in that moment how well trained they are. They may go. So have your wits about you. Just
do the best you can to prevent it.
Yep.
And socialize them in just life situations, and hope and pray after that.
And then when push comes to shove, if I'm trying to get a dog or catch a dog and they're being weird in that moment and they're not wanting to be caught, there's very few dogs that are going to let me take them by the collar, guide them. But almost every one of those dogs will hop into my car if I open up a door. Just know that about dogs. You can open up a car door and say, come on, get in. And they'll jump in. Like, so many strange dogs will. Because they're so used to doing that. The car always takes them somewhere fun. Whereas a creepy stranger grabbing their collar, that's scary. But hopping in the car that sometimes takes you to the beach, that's a risk worth taking.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, Julie, I think we should end this one.
I think so too.
Thank you. Been fun.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
Sounds good. Thank you.